So next, I would like to call to the stage Dr. Linda Tello, founder and CEO of Whole Earth Engineering. Linda is the first generation Latina with indigenous ancestry from Colombia and New Mexico. She has always been interested in indigenous knowledge and ancient engineering. She saw opportunities to support both indigenous communities and non-indigenous communities through the integration of their different knowledge systems for betterment of humanity. Thus, Whole Earth Engineering Incorporated was born. So I welcome Dr. Linda Tello and her presentation, Primitive Western Mindsets Limit Indigenous Community. Welcome, Dr. Linda Tello.
Thank you, Anelia, so much. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to speak. So I wrote something last night, as I told Anelia, 3:30 in the morning, because I was like, Spirit, download something. Let me know what you need me to say. So, because I'd been thinking about it for a while, but here it goes. This is what came through me, and I think it's touched upon a lot of the themes that I've heard people say today. So here I go. So, hello, I am Dr. Linda Tello, and I am the founder of Whole Earth Engineering, Inc. My doctorate is in civil, environmental, and sustainable engineering. I'm a professionally licensed industrial engineer in the states of New Mexico and Hawaii. My family is from Colombia, South America, and I am a first-generation American. I am the founder of Whole Earth Engineering, Inc. I founded Whole Earth Engineering, Inc. because as a student of engineering and indigenous knowledge systems, mainly of the Andes via the traditions of the Q'ero, who are the last living descendants of the Inca, I recognized the need to bridge and develop respect between indigenous and non-indigenous knowledge systems for the creation of integrated and holistic approaches to humanity's needs: food, water, shelter, energy, and community. I perceive that many behaviors Western visitors to Peru saw as traditional, such as indigenous people putting their items on the floor when selling them at a market, really had a more practical origin, that the people didn't have tables. This called my attention because I would see tables available for indigenous people to use, but often they were never offered to the people. They were not offered because of the justification that, oh, it's not their tradition to use tables, but the people weren't given an option or the opportunity to actually use the tables. I began to recognize that many behaviors that seem benign had a dark origin that most of us are unaware of. One such origin is the two papal bulls, the Romanus Pontifex of 1454 and the Inter Caetera of 1493, issued by the Catholic Church, Pope Alexander VI in the 15th century, and are what have retroactively become known as the doctrine of discovery. These papal bulls are what Christian Europeans used to justify the subjugation of non-Christian nations and peoples through patterns of domination and dehumanization that have become institutionalized in language, thought, and behavior in our cultural and legal systems. These mindsets were established by Spanish rulers who were in debt to other nations, such as the Dutch, for their participation in foreign wars, and needed to appease their subjects who were appalled at seeing indigenous and other human beings sold as commodities at market. Rulers justified their deeds by labeling non-Christian people as subhuman, possessing of souls that could be saved and pay tithes to the church, and because we're bipedal, even though they could do hard labor, we're above animals. Unfortunately, the mindsets for justifying the buying and selling of non-Christian people has shape-shifted and embedded itself into the lingering colonistic and discriminatory mindsets many indigenous peoples experience today. I have experienced some of these mindsets by having fellow Americans ask me, what country are you from? How long have I been in this country? Or hearing people ask if I'm the new administrative assistant. Nothing against admins. I can't do that job. We all have our skills. That's not my skill set. But rather than asking if I'm the new engineer, or asking, is English my first language, as though I couldn't have learned more than one language at a time? These experiences may seem innocuous. However, they represent a deeper idea of otherness, that because I am different than what the person doing the viewing has defined as normal, based on their filters, that somehow I am not equal to those perceiving me. By themselves, the questions are benign, but the context in which they're asked is where the idea of separation and possibly not equal is found. These experiences opened my eyes to my own unconscious ideas of how I may perceive others as not equal to me. To recognize how I may perceive others through a Western lens may be like using a fishnet to catch water. It doesn't work. And though, yes, we all have differences, it is perceiving the differences as having more or less value than your own value or standards, where we can find when working with Indigenous communities, we, those of Western upbringing, are what limit Indigenous community development. When I began working with the Q'ero people of Peru, the last living descendants of the Inca, Elisa, a young lady from the community said, I was the only person she had met who had come to their community and said they were rich. She was very perplexed. She said, we don't have many things. I said, true, not many Western material things, but they possessed many riches that Western people can't buy with all their resources: natural beauty, connection with the land, fresh water, belonging, sovereignty. Rich depends on how you choose to define it. And by accepting another's definition of your value or what rich is, that is where the ultimate poverty is found. Poverty of mind and spirit. She said that our conversation opened her eyes and allowed her to begin to see her community from a different perspective. I had a similar experience with her cousin Ruben. Whole Earth Engineering Inc. sponsored 8 Q'ero youth and their families to participate in a 9-month photography and video ethnography program. I felt it was important that before anything, the people, especially the youth, had tools to tell their story, their history from their own perspectives. Again, where they could define who and what they are through their own lens and vision for themselves, and share themselves with the world, rather than, like the papal bulls, have others define who they are and what their value is. A value that would continue to be bought and sold when those not from their community would be telling the world who the Q'ero are. At the beginning of the program, I asked Ruben what he imagined for his community, and he said he really couldn't think of anything. At the end of the program, Ruben said he was so full of ideas, he couldn't believe he hadn't seen all the possibilities that had been right in front of him the entire time. I have had to recognize unconscious programming with regard to Indigenous people, such as that because someone had a third grade education didn't mean they had the mentality of a 10-year-old. This was a very eye-opening realization that I used a Western standard of measure of education to measure a person's mental capacity. It was very subconscious, but in realizing that by measuring someone's mental acuity with a Western standard of intelligence, I was insulting them without realizing it. For how could I expect to catch water with a fishnet? Ruben said to me that I was very smart, which I said intelligence is relative. I might know engineering, but please don't leave me overnight on the mountain alone, because I would probably die since I didn't have knowledge of how to live in that environment and I couldn't convince a jaguar to eat me. So overall, the most important things in my experience that support community development is humility, respect, integrity, and faith. Go with an open mind like that of a child and wonder, and an awareness of our biases. Respect people's traditions because they may be different than your own. Doesn't make them good or bad. People know what they want and what they need, even though they may not know options for achieving the vision they have for their community's future. This is where we can serve as catalysts and bridges to connect communities to resources and ideas. Integrity, work from your heart as your compass and your mind as your logic to help you navigate the challenges of any project. Be impeccable with your word, as Don Miguel Ruiz states in his book, The Four Agreements. This was huge because I first promised myself I would work the community. And when I got to Q'ero and saw the logistical and resource challenges, I wanted to run away. I understood why, as Elisa shared, lots of people would go, but rarely any would come back. I would not let them down. I promised myself I would come back. This is when faith stepped in. I had to open my heart to allow spirit to remind me that everything we have in this world is financed by spirit, universe, creator, God, that I wasn't alone. Put action to my faith and it would happen. But we, the Q'ero people, me, and whoever is in alignment with the work who wants to join us is needed to accomplish the work, because it is too big even for the Q'ero people to do themselves, or they would have already done it. That by reaching out to others, knocking on doors like I did with Engineers Without Borders, We will find the professional students or chapters that will be aligned to help us support the projects that we're doing at this living heritage community. That what limits Indigenous community development are mindsets that are often unconscious to ourselves, that we have gotten comfortable in the imbalance, because that imbalance is what keeps us from being fully accountable to our own participation in limiting the development of other people. 1 second. Because it's easier to say they don't use tables as opposed to offering a table for someone to use, because we may unconsciously fear that we are the ones who may find ourselves without a table. We need to move beyond the mindsets of the papal bulls that justify the actions of those in power for their own benefit, and move to a conscious awareness of how it is that each of us, as we become more and more aware of our own unconscious biases, create limitations for ourselves and others, that as we grow individually, when we work with Indigenous communities, we will grow collectively and become amazed by what spirit manifests. And to paraphrase Ruben, together, we will have so many ideas, we won't know where to start. Thank you for your time and attention.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Linda.
Thank you.
That was
Thank you.
amazing. And that's a topic what Christina absolutely loves and embraces. So, Enolia, stop me if I'm going over, okay, please? Because I absolutely love the idea of bridging, of getting to know one another and by respecting our traditions. And yes, I do believe that Indigenous people are rich, are richer than any other person in the world, really. I love their culture. It should be honestly implemented in the Western cultures, in Europe, everywhere. I love their mindset. I love how they connect to the earth, right? To the elements. So these are all things what we all should learn and embrace. And we are the ones we should put them in practice in our lives, and instead of judging, is that the right word, Noria? Then we should go inside and look at ourselves, what we have done, why we are where we are right now, and how and what we can do to improve that relationship what we have right now with the Indigenous people. So thank you so much for sharing. I love you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Linda Tello, my dear, dear friend. And we've worked together on this project for a long time. And I'm just so proud of her work. She doesn't even share truly how much she's impacted the lives of the Kiro. And her work is phenomenal. She saved lives. Their, their, their alpaca is now able to eat, and therefore they are able to eat, and her implementation of wells, her implementation of moving mountains, she is an amazing worker, and she doesn't say it. So I will say it for her. So I'm just so proud, and thank you for that speech, because people need to know that you can move mountains. Again, it only takes one person, one idea, and the impact is a ripple effect. So thank you.